Well, guys, here we are in day 4. So, welcome back to the Better Body Challenge. So, let me ask you a question. Did you get to yesterday's challenge? Did you manage to screenshot your number of steps and pop them up onto the group? Remember, guys, we've got to get out of our comfort zones here. What we're trying to do is change habits. We're changing a mentality. That's the one goal of this little challenge, is to change what you believe is required to get a better body, to make it simple, to make it realistic. And that's what we're going to cover now in this 4th day, which is going to be all about lifestyle and how your lifestyle impacts upon your ability to manage your own weight. So when we talk about lifestyle, what sort of things come to mind for you? Well, we're going to be covering stress management. We're going to be covering your sleeping patterns. We're going to be covering the way you deal with stress, like alcohol, drugs, food, whatever it is. And this session is going to round out the Fat Loss 4 formula for you and really put it in together, a nice packageable set of 4. Remember the major point here that I wanted to expose you to was that rather than just dealing with these primary pillars of physical activity and nutrition, we've also got to go a level deeper when we make our change. We've got to go down to the secondary pillars of mentality and lifestyle if we want to make our transformation complete and permanent. So, gents, let's get into today's content. All right, guys, so let's tuck into the content. So I just want to remind you of where lifestyle fits in. It's one of those secondary pillars, okay? So that's what we're going to double down on today. And you may be sort of thinking to yourself, hang on, I don't really understand the relevance of lifestyle or the things that you mentioned in my weight or my management of my body, my transformation. So let me really first define what we mean by lifestyle. So lifestyle factors are modifiable habits. So things that we can change. They're our ways of life, the things that we do. And they include things like how we deal with stress, as an example, our ability to get to sleep at night and stay asleep and have a quality sleep cycle, our ability to relax with friends and really be able to have downtime, our social connection, so how well we're able to kind of build relationships and really enjoy the presence of those relationships with our friends and family. And they also include risk-increasing behaviors like alcohol, drug taking, things that essentially compromise your health. They all fall under lifestyle factors. So what is the link with weight? Okay, so there's a direct link that's easy to understand, and there's an indirect link, which is a little bit more complicated. We're going to talk about them in this session. So for you guys, what I want you to do is think about how you react to stresses and to poor sleep and things that happen at work or in your life or with your kids or with your pets, challenges that you have. I want to try to look at this through those lenses, okay? So the first one is the behavioral impact. That's the direct impact of what happens when, what you do as a result of the things that happen to you, okay? That makes sense? And then there's the indirect impact, which is the hormonal impact. These are the things that happen to our body that we can't really change, but as a result of our behaviors, these hormonal alterations happen which upset our ability to manage our weight. So let's tuck into them in a little bit more detail. So firstly, the behavioral impacts of our lifestyle choices. So this becomes a vicious cycle. I want you to put yourself in the position where you've had a bloody tough day. And when I'm thinking about this, I'm thinking about my old man and my brother who work really hard in a physically demanding, labor-intensive job. And they come home, they've got an endless list of clients, and they're under a lot of pressure to basically finish the job off and get to the next client. So what ends up happening is we become stressed, acutely stressed, okay? Now, in the old days when we got stressed, we're talking, thousands of years ago, when we got stressed, We tried to jump out of the way of a tiger. We got out of the way of a tiger if we didn't get eaten, and then the stress would go away and we'd go back to just living in a relaxed fashion, maybe slinging up a swag and going to sleep. But that doesn't happen these days. What ends up happening is we have stress after stress after stress after stress, whether it's social media, Facebook posting and trying to look popular, whether it's financial stress, whether it's kids, whether it's the demands from an aggressive boss, whether it's just pressure. It just becomes this pressure cooker and we never get a break. So what do you, as a man, do as a result of the pressure and the stress that you're under? Well, I bet that it becomes a vicious circle. So this includes your sleep. So who struggles at night? Do you just zonk out because you're so tired? And do you wake up feeling refreshed? Or is it that your stress impacts your sleep and you're really down to 4 or 5 hours of poor quality sleep, which makes you feel horrendous in the morning? And that compounds into emotional eating. So how many of you guys out there really feel that due to the manner in which you're stressed at work, you take it out, you deal with it on food, drugs, and alcohol as a means of escape? And this is not a criticism. This is a way that most of this is a coping mechanism that a lot of us use. Do you have anger issues emerging in your relationships and conflicts which impact upon your performance at work or your performance with your family and being the dad or the wife or the husband that you want to be? You can see that this becomes a really vicious circle. You are stressed and it turns into this crazy vicious circle of where everything compounds upon the other due to the behaviors you're taking as a result of what's happening to you. So that's the direct impact on your weight. Now, of course, if you're eating lots of food and drinking lots of grog, it's going to be very, very difficult for you to maintain a healthy body and thus a healthy weight. So let's look at the more indirect way that lifestyle can affect you. And we call this the hormonal response. So as I mentioned, down the bottom here, normally what happens is tiger finds you, you escape from tiger, and then you go to sleep. So let's look at the steps of what happened. We get stressed. The flight or fight response is initiated. Everyone knows about this when you're in a precarious situation and the adrenaline rush happens. And what happens is we release a hormone which is commonly referred to as the stress hormone. It's called cortisol. Cortisol's job is to raise your blood sugar and mobilize blood to your limbs to make sure that you have an immediate energy source. And combined with adrenaline, you can get out of the way of that tiger. And then what ends up happening is once you are past that stressful event, cortisol normalizes back down to its normal level and everything goes away and nothing happens as a result of it. But to the modern day man, how is that changed? We've represented it with the image down here below. Modern men's stress is constant. And whether it's an angry boss or the finances or the kids and the wife or whatever it is that's constantly, the constant emails, the constant demands, the financial pressure, stress is constant. Blood sugar remains high because cortisol is saying release more blood sugar, release more blood sugar, release more blood sugar. And what happens is when you have so much blood sugar circulating that's not being used up, what do you think happens to that blood sugar? Yep, it gets stored on your belly and becomes very, very difficult to get rid of. Plus, on top of that, you're emotionally eating, and what blood sugar does when it's high and constant is makes you crave other high-fat, high-sugar foods. Can you see how it becomes this crazy vicious circle that's very difficult to escape from? This is one of the key reasons why, if we do not learn to deal better with our stress, guys, all of the efforts that we put in terms of our weight loss or our body transformation are really going to be blunted because we haven't managed to deal with things in a more proactive fashion. And look, this is easier said than done. I know this personally. It's something I have had to work very hard on, how to deal with my own personal stress. When I go on holidays, I feel for the first 2 or 3 days, I'm just a depleted man. The adrenaline's left my system and I'm just trying to actually recover. And then 3 or 4 days later, I notice my body starts to look really good again. I put that down to the fact that my cortisol levels are normalizing. They're going blood sugar out of my system, and I'm not storing that fat on my stomach. In fact, what tends to happen is it feels like I'm actually shredding up somewhat. And on a different scale, the same thing is happening to you. So what do you do? What do you do about this, fellas? There's no point just identifying and not having some sort of technique to get around it. Well, we need to address, there's two things. We can either address the underlying cause, or we can address the way we respond to the underlying cause or stressor when it happens. So to address the underlying cause, ask yourself, is this stressor something that I need to be tolerating? So for example, is it that you could remove yourself from that current work environment? Is it that you could work remotely? Are there unnecessary financial pressures that you're putting yourself under, which is, maybe direct debits coming out of your bank account that you really don't even know what they're for, and you'd be better to cut them off? Is it that we could bring in a childminder to look after kids once a day? Well, what are the stresses that you have in your life? Look at them first and ask yourself, are there any that I can remove? If, however, like most busy men, it's difficult to simply just delete those stresses, what we've then got to work out is how do we be able to deal with the stresses in a lot more proactive fashion so that we don't have this cortisol cluster happening causing us to put on weight gain. We're not emotionally eating and binging on pizza and alcohol as a means to numb ourselves out. So we look at how we can possibly change and deal with our lives. Can we just make sure that we go to bed at 10 o'clock as an example and get a full 8 hours of sleep? Can it be that we start to bring in our physical exercise to make sure that we're using weightlifting as a means of getting rid of that negative pent-up energy that's being built over the day? Have you ever tried meditation? And don't think of it this spiritual pursuit. Think of it just actually as for 10 minutes a day, sitting on a chair with some quiet music and just trying to bring some peace and some presence to yourself. We can't just rely on having a holiday anytime we get stressed. Not only is that not practical, but it's pretty financially difficult. So what we need to do is learn how to cope in a modern world with the stresses that become upon us by removing as many of the stresses as we can at the point of the issue and learning to deal with our stresses in a lot better fashion. So today, gentlemen, your instant action of this challenge is to choose one lifestyle element, the thing that you feel is causing you the most amount of angst. And what I want you to do is post what you intend to do on the group wall as an immediate change to your lifestyle. So you might decide, for example, that I'm no longer going to drink alcohol midweek. You might say, from now on, I'm going to de-stress by taking my dog for a walk first thing in the morning. You might de-stress by saying, I'm going to sit in a corner every afternoon and I'm going to write down 3 things that I have gratitude and love for. There are so many different things that we could do, and I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys out there are willing to do to change your lifestyle. It's not always about deleting the stress, it's about becoming better and better able to do it. So, gentlemen, before we go into our final day 5 of this challenge, let's see what you guys have got. Be part of the challenge, post it on the group wall, and I'll see you tomorrow.